The other one is, okay, the next talk is Localization Beyond Fonts. To tell us more, I'd like to call upon Amit Chadha from Keyword Studio.
Right, so I'll make my way the right way by climbing the stairs. I'll try and cover the time Yadu wasted. Don't worry, just kidding there, Yadu. Right, guys, my name is Amit. I'm the director at Keyword Studios India, which is a very global organization. And we help people translate, test, provide player support, and do much more. Yeah, let's start what we have to kind of trigger today. Oops, yeah. How does this move forward here? There you go, sorry. I'll have to go back. All right. Sorry, first time using this, so excuse me. All right, so what we will talk about today is something which is very different and could be very interesting to a lot of you, because we're going to talk about internationalization, localization, and finally reaching to globalization, right? Now, it could be helpful to any game dev studio, any producer. What are you trying to achieve? Where exactly you are primarily aiming to reach, okay? Let's have a very quick view of internationalization, right? It is a process of game design or a software that adopt to various languages, right? Now, what's the difference between internationalization and localization? We'll cover that in a bit. And finally reaching it to a globalization. So you, as a dev, possibly need to code your games in a way that it is internationally accepted, right? So it's something which has to be in your mind at the start of the step and not an afterthought, right? What is localization? Localization is nothing but it's actually adapting or translating a game content. It could be UI, could be in form of text, audio, and much more for a specific region, for a specific language, to address a specific audience, all right? Globalization, it's less commonly used term. However, now many companies started using it, right? Who cares and why? Why do we need this, right? We'll try and make this, eventually interesting and interactive session rather than me talking and we're not doing much more here. So primarily internationalization or localization for any game or software, the final aim is to reach the global audience, right? Now, make more money. Indeed, make more money, right? Is it worth localizing? These are the first initial thoughts people do get to see or kind of pops up in your mind. Do we really need it? So many AI tools are available, Google Translate, stuff like that is there. Why do we actually engage somebody and translate, right? So we'll cover that in a bit as well. Is it, any beneficial for me from a cost point of view? Does my game player already speak a particular language or that language in which I'm creating a video game, right? Is my audience already fluent in English? Because primarily games are made in English, right? Are they able to play this game already? So these are like very basic questions, And of course, we're talking about the software, which is AI, open source, availability, community translations, etc. So why do we actually need humans to do the job? Let's first quickly take a look at the top most spoken languages. Now, either go through the list or maybe cover in the next slide as well. This could actually have very surprising data in it, To start with, it's Chinese, it's not English, Yeah, these guys are split all across the globe. It's about 1.2 billion people roughly speak Chinese. Spanish, it's still over English. Of course, English. Hindi. Arabic, Portuguese, Bengali, Russian, Japanese, and Punjabi. Punjabi is split across the globe, especially found in Punjab and Canada, more than anywhere else. And trust me, guys, they've started paying a lot for games. The kids are now started to pay a lot, so you can focus on that language as well in case you ever want to translate your games. Same stuff, differently portrayed. Well, with some data here, we're talking about Mandarin Chinese. It's about 873 million native speakers of this language. So I will continue to refer native speakers because these are your target audience and not typically anybody who's learned a language and would want to play or converse, you know. Second is Hindi or Urdu, okay? Third is third is Spanish, fourth is English, Arabic, Portuguese again. Bengali is there in the seventh list. Of course, it's been spoken in Bangladesh, spoken in India, and other part of the world as well, right? Of course, Russian, Japanese, and Punjabi. However, do you guys think that it'll be wise to localize your game content in these top 10 languages just because we know that these are the most prominent languages spoken across the globe? Can anybody think of that? No. Anyway, we'll try and cover that as well. What are locales? You know, if you're a dev, you're trying to localize your video game, but if you do not specify which particular locale you really want to translate your content, it could go very differently. You know, say for example, you say I want to translate my game in Urdu, but if you do not define if it's Urdu of India or it's Urdu of Pakistan, it will create a lots and lots of difference, right? So please do specify at the start, scope, think, and include locations, right? Now, locations is nothing, you know. For example, you can express like DE is for German, you know, EN for English, French, and JA is for Japanese, right? Why isn't it enough to specify just the language? The second part of the slide is covering that part, you know, because English, UK, and US, for example, of course, they're both English, but they're spoken differently, they're written differently. Hence, it's very important to specify which particular region are you trying to target, right? Reasons. Why? There are reasons because the currency format, the date format, the numbers, the time zones, and certain aesthetic of that language would be a lot different, although it's still English. Okay? Now we're covering that, of course, English US versus German, the spelling of color versus COL with U. You know, imagine we Indians been using U, but now it's okay, it's still acceptable. But your teachers might still mark you down, right? So be careful. Slangs, line versus Q, and now millennium versus Gen Z. So we have to be really careful in what we are trying to achieve here, right? Number formatting, starting from phone numbers to how the currencies are being written. And if you are, of course, into a games market trying to monetize in different part of the world, indeed, be very, very, you know, careful while coding. That's all part of your internationalization ready. If you aren't coding it at the right time or the start of the inception of your idea, you may not be able to achieve these results at a later date, okay? Keyboard shortcut. Again, I want my games to be global, but unfortunately, it still uses only the Indian keyboard and doesn't really care about what's being used in the US or the UK side. Hence, your shortcuts, now you're asking your player to go left, but it makes start climbing, right? Hence, it's important to take the experts' advice, consultancy, or whatever you think is right and appropriate. Please do engage someone who has been in the business of localization, right? Right to left, tricky part, you know, I want to reach the UAE market. I want my games to be translated in Arabic. How do I do that? You know, because now at the time of coding, you've actually not thought of, you know, doing the code in a way that will accept right to left language. Hence, again, it has to be a thought which needs to incept at the time of idea, right? We'll not go into too much of technicalities here because I'm not a technical guy. So any which ways, the questions are still welcome later dates. But yes, it's all part of the technical stuff, the code that you'll have to do at the start and not an afterthought, right? Here are certain facts about localization. fonts. If you won't define the font, it will create some issues at the time of embedding the text, as in when you'll move forward, right? The size of text boxes. Games are played typically on mobile, console, or wherever. The space is limited, and certain languages are much more longer than English in case you've created your game in English. Hence, you have to be very careful while specifying a particular space and boxes, buttons. Text points and sizes, it's readable. It's font which is widely accepted and that particular audience is, able to relate to it. Line spacing, text styles, etc. There are a lot of things that goes into the play beyond fonts and beyond localizing your content alone, right? Well, a few things one should avoid during a thought process of internationalization, which is, of course, it can't be an afterthought. You should think of it at the beginning before it's too late. Otherwise, it'll be too much costly for you to fix those bugs which shouldn't have been done at the initial or the inception, right? How to fix it? Plain and simple. Once again, it's a start. How are internationalization done? Devs, pull the strings, you code, and make sure that your game now is ready to accept those right to left languages, that date format, the currency format, and stuff like that. Keep that in mind, code it accordingly, and then get to the second phase of which is getting a company or an individual translators who would actually now going to translate your content from English to any other language or from one language to the another. It's both ways, right? There are certain risks of poor localization. In the next slide, I'm going to ask for a volunteer to come and read something for me. But for this particular one, let's just quickly go through this one. There's going to be a bit of reading here. So word okay could be translated as so-so or mediocre. And when used as arrows can confuse some users whose language use whatever marks are those as quotation marks, right? Hence, if you're not engaging with the right set of people, your games will incur a lot of bugs. And to avoid that, either you do the coding the correct way, the first, or make sure you engage an organization or a company who could actually support and bring a game which is bug-free from a language point of view, from a functionality point of view, and then finally even provide support later, right? Product name or could translate poorly. So Microsoft Bing can translate to disease in Chinese. A McDonald's picture, only billboard in Saudi Arabia. Product could offend users from other countries. Often, as being in localization, we are asked to review swear word list and what and what not is sensitive for a region. So we often receive that list. Some people do find it very interesting to go through that list of swear and then finally do that intonation, tone. Everything matters because anything which is said in an inappropriate tone could still offend anybody anywhere around the world. Hence, it has to be pretty sensitive matter of why to engage somebody who's professional and who's a gamer who could actually bring that authentic culture within your game, right? Now, this is an interesting slide, and I really want somebody who would volunteer to come and read. Can you pass on a mic to anyone there, while I'll have a water? Is there anybody who would want to volunteer read this for me? Anybody with a good voice? No? Nobody wants to? Would you like to read this, please? Yeah, you? Can you pass on a mic, please? Thank you. Why are we talking this? This is all AI driven, okay?
Drop your pants here for best results.
What do you think this could be? It's a message on a dry cleaning shop in Tokyo. And trust me, these are certain real examples we took, right? Drop your pants here for the best results. Uh, Imagine a dry cleaning shop giving you something like that. Would you ever want to go on to them? The second, please.
We
Go for
take
it.
your bags and send them in all directions.
Yeah, you want to be on that airport? For sure not, right? Well, that happens, by the way. You know, a lot of countries, a lot of states, they do take your bags and send them to any direction they feel like, right? Now, yeah, the Bangkok is the amazing one. Please go for it.
Ladies may have a fit upstairs.
Yeah. Can anybody make out any context out of it? Right. Sorry? Absolutely. Well, teeth extracted by latest methodist dentist in Hong Kong. Right. Go for it. Keep reading. Unless you want to pass on a mic to anybody else, you want to have some fun. I don't know.
Please leave your values at the front desk.
Yeah. I would want to check in that hotel in Paris. Right.
No smoothen the lion.
Yeah. Okay.
If you consider our help impolite, you should see the manager.
Okay. Let's go look at this manager.
Our wines leave you nothing to hope for. It is forbidden to enter a woman even if dressed as a man. Fur
Yeah.
coats made for ladies from their own skin.
Wow.
Specialists in women and other diseases. Ladies, leave clothes here and spend afternoon having good time. We regret that you will be unbearable. When passenger of foot heave in sight, tottle the horn, trumpet him melodiously at first, but if he still obstacles you, then tottle him to vigor.
Perfect. Lengthier the sentence, it's going to give you amazing results. Hence, you still want to save money, rely on AI, be my guest, do your job wisely. Now, I'm not saying the AI has not advanced. Trust me, guys, the kind of, the technology shift we've experienced in last few years, it's commendable, it's amazing. A lot of companies are doing a fairly decent job. Within keywords as well, we've kind of started creating our own MT engines, which is machine translation engines. We're training them. If we still say we don't need humans or human touch to localize your content, it could go very, very, very differently, right? And I'm sure you don't want to play with your game, and you want people to play your game. So if that is the idea, I would humbly request and recommend you to get in touch with professionals and leave something onto them rather than, relying on tools. It's important. It's fairly, fairly important to know where are we trying to reach. Now, there are examples. Culturally, India is a very rich country. We are split across the globe. We speak so many languages. But unfortunately, we still face a lot of racism in a lot of countries for a lot of reasons we are known for, right? Hence, the games or any product that we create, we should take a pride and proud in that and ensure that we are trying to reach the global market. And the global market should also feel proud of what or who we are, rather than, saving money all the time. Automated translation. Now, this is another one. I would want somebody else to loudly read this for me, if you don't mind. Anybody else? Where's the mic? Pass it on to anyone. Yeah. Loudly. So it's from a course syllabus. This English, and then it was translated to Chinese by Babelfish. Babelfish is very, very old AI tool who's trying to achieve the results what Google did later, etc. And then back to English. So first, read the first, of course. Yeah.
For syllabus,
Yeah.
there is no textbook, but there will be reading assignments throughout the quarter that will be posted to the course website. to print or read online. For many of the reading assignments, we will assign questions posted online for you to answer about the reading. You will submit your answers to these questions online. These will be part of your course grade and will not be accepted late. And the translated version says, without the textbook, but will be posted to the root website in online printing or reads in quarter reading assignment. For many reading assignments, we the assignment problem online will post, for you can reply that about studies. You online will submit your answer to give these questions. These will be a your root rank part and after them will not be accepted.
Was that translated by Shoaib Malik by any chance? I have no clue, but yeah, that's the reality. Shorter the sentence, AI could still do the trick. Longer, the lengthier the sentence or the phrase or the para, this could be the result. And if this is the result, you certainly need human to fix it, right? Hence, please do not just rely on the tools and the localization. Why it's important? Well, for certain industry, for certain genre, it could be very, very well doing a job, at least in today's time. But when we look at the gaming, which is too creative, too interesting, and sometimes the tool is simply confused in terms of what we are trying to achieve, right? Especially during characterization, you want your character to run left, right, jump, etc. At the same time, there are too many other nuances that you really need to fix. Machine will give you a result. It will save time, but we don't want to save time on cost of playing our own game, right? So, bridging the language barrier, how do we do that? It's the global content simply depend on language translation alone? No, it's about color, shape, size, style, image, icon, graphics, societal codes, humor, etiquette, rituals, symbols, relationships, and especially the last one is very important here, belief. If the culturalization will be, not at par if you're not actually giving importance to that particular locale, to that particular region, right? Some examples of functional content include the date and time format, very important, rolling back to the first slides, why it's important, contact information, weight, measurement, geographical references, language and linguistic content, product descriptions, reviews. I would say if you really want your teasers to be translated in any form of text or audio or video or whatever, you can still rely on AI a bit, but do some human intervention. Finally, before you publish it anywhere, make sure it's read, it's vetted, and it's proofread by a human before posting it publicly. Don't shame yourself, fame yourself. Go wise. Well, let's have a very quick example, look into how game art change around the West versus Japan specifically. I'm picking up this market because if any of you would visit ever or have seen Japan, you'd realize what I'm saying. That's a different country, that's a different world altogether. The way of living and leading life is not as normal as what possibly an Indian does, right? So that's a classic example. It's a print media, printed on top of your game boxes. Look at the US and the Japan, the same game, right? That's a job of a human. Machine may not be able to give you that. Why? Why is it important to do such major changes for the Japanese market? They won't relate to what is published in the US. Hence, the number of downloads, the final reach in that market will be super limited, right? The Child of Eden versus versus US and Japan. Once again, they focus on certain aesthetic, and there's a way to understand that market. Similarly, it's the case with India or anywhere else for that matter, right? So engage somebody who's professional enough to guide you, to coach you throughout this process, right? This is it, and we finished about good 4 minutes earlier, so I'll leave this time for questions, if any. Yeah.
So with localization, is it mainly based on languages and I guess region-specific issues, or does it also sort of include or touch on things like addressing readability for users who are maybe colorblind or text-to-speech when it comes to accessibility? Yes.
So first thing first, yes, the localization is purely dependent on people who can visually experience it and do the job. For the remaining part of your questions is a different ballgame altogether, right? So yes, you will have to engage a set of professionals. I am not forgetting the term, which is
It's a mix of UX also, I guess. But
yeah, it is. But for impaired, blinds, and others, I think there's a term I'm forgetting. I'm sorry. Sorry. Especially not specially able. The language that they use, Braille. So you have to do something differently there. So no, localization in form of audio it could be different, but in form of text, no. Yeah. Nothing else? Cool.
Any other question? Yeah, one more here.
Yeah.
With the mic.
It's not really about this, but just about localization in the terms of cultural context.
In the term of?
Cultural context, like for instance, say I have a game which has a cultural identity which is specific to my
Absolutely.
place,
Yeah.
my geographical location, and I want to translate that in the same context, cultural context, to
Absolutely.
another person who is not from that cultural
Absolutely.
context.
So it's a great question, and I think we've addressed that during this entire conversation, or rather talk. When you as a dev or a producer, whenever you are getting into the process of localization, the first thing first you need to keep in mind, code it so that it's accepted, one point technologically ready at least, right? Engage with an expert. Now, when I say do that, typically their job is to translate in a way that to anybody else from that particular region or area should get a feeler of it was actually written in that language and not translated. Right? That's a job of a human translator. So that's a job of a dev to finally define during the scope. If you do not do that, which region, which locale are you trying to reach, it might mess up later, right? And there are, different steps to localization. Of course, after the scope gathering, you ensure that it's translated in a way. You define that particular region, and then you bring in that cultural nuances into that content, which is why it'll be different, which is why the space requirement of that particular, page of that model, character, whatever, will be lot differently required. Does that address your question? No.
In some sense, but just
Yeah.
very specifically, because I was reading about your company,
Yeah.
I just wanted to know how Subway Surf does this.
How?
Subway Surf.
Subway Surf.
Subway Surf.
Subway Surf.
It's a very popular
Yeah.
mobile game, right?
Pardon my ignorance. I hardly get time to look at what games are coming into the play because at Keywords, we work on multiple titles. There are 1,000+ clients, so I'm not aware of all the games, of course. But
What about the one that you showed in the previous slide?
I don't know if is that there.
I mean, the one which you
The
shown,
Eden.
in
So-
Japan it's different. I mean,
so-
the covers you had shown.
Absolutely. So it's the point of culturalization. We engage as a localization team. When we gather a full team of who will do what sort of job, the scope needs to define. It's not limited to text. It's not limited to fonts, but it's limited to aesthetic or the banner. So that cultural nuances, of course, we go out, reach out to the native speakers who are professional localization experts. That's their bread and butter. That's what they typically do. Yeah, this is the one, right? So there's a proper team which is formed at the time of, starting a job of localization. And this clear scope definition is for them to kind of go reach out. They may be running a surveys in their local regions. They might have their own ways of acceptance, and finally ensure that it's not culturally sensitive before coming up with something like that. And of course, there's a panel who will come and decide at their end if it is accepted or not. Make sense? Somewhat.
Actually, I would like to add on to that. Like, imagine if GTA Vice City was released in India, or Rockstar Games were planning to release in India. They would choose locations like Marina Beach, somewhere in Mumbai, etc., and then culturally adapt to that. And I'm not sure if they would change the language of English. Like, do they have to release it in Hindi, or can it still be in English and change the cultural reference?
That's your personal choice. One, of course, nobody is stopping you to release your games in English, but the wider audience, if you have to reach and to actually reach out to, it's recommended. You can definitely localize. So it's a choice. It's not a force. One thing, right? Another thing depends on a lot of budget. So if you have a budget to do the job, of course, then you can get into the aesthetic, to the characters, and not just limit yourself to text or the audio form, right? You can then do it the way you really want to, right? Of course, a lot of organizations these days are coming up with the idea of using a lot of machine translation tools. It saves time, yes, it saves a lot of stuff, but at the end, the results were there, and not, I'm saying, it is certainly improving a lot now, right? Still, the human intervention is required. Now, change of beat, change of location, change of that, we leave it to the experts who actually does the particular job, and not something that we as a company or will end up deciding on that factor. So that's something that has to come from you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you so much for a very insightful presentation. Localization beyond fonts.